I've been asking myself a question that I know a lot of fans have whispered lately. The kind of question that keeps you up at night when you start connecting the dots. Will Avengers Doomsday really unleash multiple Doctor Doom variants? An entire storm of dooms, while somehow leaving Wanda Maximoff on the sidelines nowhere near Moon Knight's story. It's the kind of contradiction that shouldn't make sense, and yet the closer we get to the rumored trailer drop, reportedly just weeks away and expected to screen before Avatar: Fire and Ash, according to Collider, the stranger everything becomes. I remember the first time I heard the whispers, a few vague posts, a few scoops from sources who know too much. People claiming the film had evolved so drastically from its Kang Dynasty origins that the only way to bridge the old plan with the new one was through a multiversal labyrinth of dooms. At first it felt like clickbait, but then more hints surfaced, and suddenly this idea wasn't just entertaining, it was plausible. And as I dug deeper, I realized this theory doesn't just explain the future of the MCU. It answers mysteries left dangling since Fantastic Four: First Steps rolled its credits. The thing that first pushed me down the rabbit hole was Doom's confusing place in Fantastic Four: First Steps. That post-credit moment with Franklin Richards staring at a scarred figure raised more questions than it answered, but the real puzzle wasn't the scars or the man, it was the empty seat. That empty Latverian chair at the Future Foundation briefing has been gnawing at me ever since. Why tease a representative who never appears? Why plant that detail if it means nothing? No one from the production has clarified it, and trust me, I've listened to every interview, every press junket, every accidental slip of the tongue. But then I remembered something strange in Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. John Krasinski's Reed Richards casually uses Doom's time platform, and the Future Foundation is guarded by Ultrons that feel one innovation removed from becoming Doombots. That means an 838 Doom existed somewhere. So where is he? What happened to him? And suddenly, the idea of Downey Jr.'s Doom being a Doom above all didn't feel like a wild theory anymore. It felt like the only way to stitch together these dangling threads, the only way to justify an empty chair in one universe and a missing legend in another. When Scooper Daniel RPK claimed on Patreon that Avengers Doomsday would feature multiple Doom variants, including a possible female Doom, I didn't jump to conclusions. Scoop culture is a minefield. But this one stuck because it didn't contradict the past. It clarified it. Remember that mid-credit scene from Ant-Man and the Wasp, Quantumania? The one teasing legions of Kang variants assembling like a cosmic parliament? That idea never got resolved. The multiverse saga shifted direction. The villain changed. The story reoriented. But the engine powering that concept, variants colliding, still existed. And when I learned Michael Waldron had worked on both versions of the script, the Kang Dynasty draft and the new Doomsday era rewrite overseen by the Russos and Stephen McFeely, something clicked. Waldron is the kind of writer who doesn't discard an idea if he can reshape it. So I pictured it. An opening montage showing a mosaic of dooms across the multiverse, each more terrifying than the last, each destined to fall to a single conqueror. Not a legion of dooms hunting the Avengers, but a fleeting, brutal introduction meant to crown Robert Downey Jr.'s Doom as the final, uncontested threat. A story device, not the story itself, but one powerful enough to redefine him instantly. And the comics actually support this direction more than people realize. Jason Aaron's Avengers Forever storyline introduced the Doom above all, leader of the Masters of Evil, a Doom variant so ruthless he grafted enchanted armor over the skin of people he once loved. It's grotesque, chilling, and emotionally revealing, and while I don't think Marvel Studios will literally adapt that, I do believe the spirit of that archetype is feeding the film's DNA. The idea that Doom has eliminated dozens of his other selves, consuming their knowledge, conquering their universes, and ascending beyond them, that fits perfectly with the clues we've already seen. It explains the empty Latvian chair. It explains the missing 838 Doom. It even explains why Franklin Richards reacted with such distress when seeing the masked figure in First Steps. You don't look at a scarred traveler from another reality without instinctively sensing the deaths he stepped over to get here. And knowing the Russos, I can imagine them using this as a way to show Doom's threat level without needing an exposition dump. A silent montage of variants falling, a single victor rising. And suddenly, the entire multiverse saga pivots toward a man whose menace doesn't need to be explained, only witnessed. But then comes the question that fans keep bringing up in comment sections. If all of this is unfolding, where is Wanda Maximoff? Elizabeth Olsen recently said she isn't in the movie and has no idea when or how Wanda might return. I watched that interview twice. She wasn't dodging, she was genuinely uncertain, and that's what surprised me. Wanda's arc is one of the MCU's richest. Grief, power, loss, corruption, redemption. You don't bury a character like that. But what if the answer isn't about Wanda at all? What if it's about scheduling, rewrites, and a story shifting away from Kang's mystical temporal roots into Doom's scientific arcane fusion? Wanda's magic would make sense in a Kang-driven narrative involving the Scarlet Witch's multiversal implications. But Doom's story, Doom's evolution, Doom's scarring and rise, that is technological mysticism, Latvian sovereignty, and cosmic ambition. Wanda might return in Secret Wars or beyond, but her absence here might simply be a byproduct of the MCU rewriting itself in real time, reshaping a saga mid-flight. It's not that Wanda wasn't wanted, it's that this particular chapter belongs to the man whose mask and scars are becoming the face of the new multiverse threat. Then there's Moon Knight, a character fans desperately expected to reappear, especially with all the clues pointing toward Ara-Matut and Kang's ancient Egyptian roots. Oscar Isaac's recent comments about not being particularly open to working with Disney right now hit the fandom like a thunderbolt. And when you layer that onto Moon Knight's unresolved ending from Mark and Steven's struggle to Jake Lockley's shadowy takeover, it becomes clear why the character might not fit neatly into Doomsday's current narrative. In a Kang-centric story, Moon Knight's ties to Egypt, destiny, and the cyclical nature of time would have been perfect puzzle pieces. But when Doom replaces Kang as the overarching threat, the entire thematic ecosystem shifts. Doom doesn't need Egyptian mythology. Doom doesn't need avatars of gods. Doom's conflict is one of intellect, power, scars, and sovereignty. And honestly, I think the creative team realized they couldn't give Moon Knight the screen time required to explain Jake Lockley without derailing the pace. Instead of forcing his arc into a film already rewriting itself, they chose to preserve him for a moment when his story can breathe. And given the scale of Doomsday, I think that was the wiser move. Still, I can't shake the thought that Moon Knight's original purpose in the Kang Dynasty version of this story might now be mirrored through Doom's new characterization. Remember Ara-Matut's cybernetic enhancements, the half-robotic, half-scarred body that hinted at brutal battles across time. That visual wasn't random. It was storytelling through design. And if those conceptual elements were carried over to Doom, it explains the reports claiming Downey's Doom will bear facial scarring, the kind Franklin reacted to. Scars are narrative shortcuts. They tell us a character has survived things we'll only understand later. They tell us this man fought others like him, maybe even himself. And suddenly, the rumors of multiple Dooms being slaughtered in an opening montage begin to feel purposeful rather than sensational. It would instantly communicate why this Doom, the surviving Doom, stands above the rest. And more importantly, it would justify his fixation on the multiverse itself. If you've already conquered yourself, what's left but everything else? And while Moon Knight might not appear to explain Ara-Matut's brutality, the scars on Doom's face could serve that same purpose. A silent history engraved in skin and metal, telling us he didn't rise through diplomacy. He rose through conquest. Once that clicked for me, I started rethinking the entire marketing trajectory for this movie. If Marvel wants to position Downey's Doom as the definitive villain of the multiverse saga, they don't need to explain everything up front. They just need to give us enough to fear him. Imagine a trailer that doesn't reveal much but suggests everything. A glimpse of a mask lowering, a shot of a scarred eye, a destroyed version of Latveria or some alternate universe throne room. Something that implies the deaths of other Dooms without showing the violence outright. That's how you introduce a villain who is already a legend. And if the rumors are true, and the trailer really is releasing alongside Avatar, Fire, and Ash, then Marvel is clearly planning something big. They're saving their strongest card, their most iconic mask, for a moment that will break the internet. And honestly, that's the kind of marketing Doom deserves. Not an over-explanation, not a character bio, not a narrated backstory, just the chilling sense that a man who has defeated himself is now approaching the Avengers with the same inevitability as gravity. A force you don't negotiate with. A force you survive only by miracle. But when I think about the climax of this whole theory, the part that ties everything together, it isn't the montage of Dooms or the scars or even Wanda and Moon Knight's absence. It's the idea that Marvel might be using Doomsday to quietly solve every continuity issue the multiverse saga has struggled with since Loki Season 1. Think about it. Empty chairs in multiversal organizations. Missing characters we assume should exist, alternate realities with incomplete hierarchies. All of it can be explained by a single predator operating across timelines, eliminating his counterparts, manipulating cosmic structures, stepping into power vacuums created by his own hands. It reframes Doom not as a late addition replacing Kang, but as a force that has always been there, quietly pruning realities, removing rivals, shaping the multiverse without the audience realizing it. This gives Marvel a clean slate. It allows them to reconcile old scripts with new plans. It turns the narrative into a mystery that was hiding in plain sight. A story that didn't break, it evolved. And when we finally see Downey's Doom fully unmasked, it won't just be a reveal. It will be the moment we realize the multiverse wasn't fractured by accident. It was pruned by intention. The beauty of this theory is that it explains why certain stories were delayed, why certain characters vanished, and why certain plot lines never fully bloomed. Because the story itself was transitioning beneath our feet, shifting from a Kang-centric blueprint into a Doom-dominated architecture without the audience being explicitly told. It's narrative tectonics. You feel the rumble before you see the mountain rise. And this is where I think the multiversal Council of Dooms concept becomes more than a rumor. It becomes the missing puzzle piece that smooths the continuity from one saga to the next. We don't need Doom variants to dominate the runtime. We just need them to exist long enough to be wiped out. And that act, that brutal opening gambit, will tell us everything we need to know about the Doom we're left with. A Doom who annihilated himself across realities. A Doom who carries scars not as reminders but as trophies. A Doom who didn't replace Kang, he consumed the space Kang once occupied. And when the Avengers finally face him, they won't just be facing a villain. They'll be facing the final survivor of an internal multiversal war we never saw. A man forged through the death of his own reflections. And that leads me to the moment that gives me chills every time I think about it. The inevitable face-off. Not between Doom and the Avengers, not yet, but between Doom and the expectations of the audience. We've seen countless villains in the MCU, some brilliant, some forgettable, some tragic, some comedic. But Doom is different. Doom is not a villain. He is a mythology. And Downey, stepping into that mythology after years of embodying Tony Stark, adds a layer of emotional subtext no script could replicate. It turns his appearance into an event, a seismic character moment in pop culture. And when the trailer finally arrives, whenever that December date lands, and we see even one frame of that mask, one glint of the man behind it, all the doubts about the multiverse saga will evaporate. Because this villain won't feel like a patch. He'll feel like destiny. He'll feel like the villain the saga was building toward all along, even when we didn't know it. And when he speaks, if he speaks, the entire theater will go silent. Because we won't be hearing Tony Stark's voice. We'll be hearing the man who conquered Tony Stark in a dozen timelines before stepping into ours. So when people ask me if there will really be multiple Dooms in Avengers Doomsday, or if Wanda is gone for good, or if Moon Knight was forgotten, I always smile a little. Because I think the real story is bigger than cameos, bigger than variant counts, bigger than who shows up and who doesn't. I think Marvel is engineering a mythology shift, a transition into a saga where Doom becomes the gravitational center. And to get there, they needed time, rewrites, missing characters, empty chairs, unspoken histories, and scars that tell more truth than dialogue ever could. Maybe Wanda returns later? Maybe Moon Knight finds his place in another chapter. But Doomsday belongs to Doom. And if even half of these rumors are true, we're about to witness the ascension of a villain who doesn't just challenge the Avengers, he defines them by the shadows he casts. A villain shaped by death, sharpened by victory, crowned by inevitability. And when this story finally unfolds on screen, it won't feel like the MCU trying to fix itself. It'll feel like the MCU revealing what it was building toward all along. If you enjoyed this deep dive, like, share, subscribe. And if you want to directly support more stories like this, consider dropping a $20 super thanks.